Hello everybody, I'm Storm here, and what I wanted to do today is just kind of go over some thoughts that I had about Mass Effect after having finished the original trilogy of games on my channel. And so there's going to be real no like combat or story or anything here. It's just going to be me rambling into my microphone and recording it, pretty much. But that's basically what I do anyway. So, I think that I mentioned when I first started was that the Mass Effect franchise is one of my favorite sci-fi franchises ever. I kind of rank it up there with, Star Trek and Stargate and Babylon 5 and stuff like that. So, it is top tier as far as I'm concerned. For my opinion. Is kind of where it fits for me. But there are definitely nits that can be picked should one be inclined to pick nits. Or nitpick. And I just kind of want to go over some thoughts about each game, some things that I like, things that I don't, or things I think that are issues, and things that I think that are good about each game in the series, and we'll just kind of start with that a little bit, I guess. So, for the first game in the series, kind of where it really stands is on the universe it built and the characters that it had in the game. It set up the whole thing and, did very well at that. Where the first game has problems, and it definitely does have problems, is the combat system is not very good. The attempt to combine kind of RNG based mechanics with shooter mechanics just really didn't work. The AI is just dumb as a box of hair. Boils down to basically just charge at the player and fire everything. Which in some situations becomes extremely frustrating when you get a room full of enemies just blindly charge you. The weapons don't have really unique kind of feel or personality to them. You just basically pick the one that has the best stats and go. The only difference is between the different weapon types rather than the individual weapons within those types. The inventory management's a pain. Yeah. Those are kind of the big problems with the original Mass Effect. Now, Mass Effect 2 came along, and that is probably my favorite game in the entire trilogy. It definitely improved the combat. Bring it to just a pretty standard third-person cover-based shooter mechanics. Gave all the different weapons unique feel and kind of personality to them. And one of the things that I really like about Mass Effect 2 is kind of its structure and pacing. It almost kind of plays like you're going through the episodes of a TV show, with each a story mission being an episode, like the whole Recruit Jack episode, or Recruit Morden episode, or Recruit Archangel episode, and so forth and so on. And so it feels really good to go through the game in that kind of structure. So that's, what it does really well. And the story is pretty good. The characters are great. All that kind of stuff. Where Mass Effect 2 kind of runs into trouble is that they kind of overreacted with their to the criticisms of Mass Effect 1, to the point where they removed the inventory system completely. They removed weapon upgrades completely. They removed weapon customization completely. They even removed the weapon stats from the interface, to where you can't even tell when you're looking at the weapon interface what the differences between one gun and another are, and you actually have to take them out into a mission and use them, only to find out, oh, I don't like this gun, and then you just gotta kind of have to deal with it until you get to a weapon rack and can swap it out. So that's kind of a problem there. The other kind of issue that is a bit of a nitpick, but it's there, is that the story does feel a little bit disjointed from the main narrative to some extent, because you're dealing with the collectors and all this other kind of stuff, and there's some ties back to the Reapers and the other main story threads, but it kind of does stand on its own a little bit, and that can be a bit jarring in the overall sequence. But I don't think that's a major problem. It's just a small nitpick there, and I'm not sure how that could have been adjusted with what they did with it. So it is what it is. For Mass Effect 3, it's the best combat in the series. The original Trilogy series. The only Mass Effect game that has better combat, in my opinion, is Andromeda, but we're not going to talk about Andromeda today. It brought back weapon upgrades, brought back weapon customization. It added in the shooting range, so that you can actually go test your loadouts and make sure that it does what you want it to do before you actually go into combat. Great. Excellent. Fixed all those problems. Also, all the characters are back, all the references, all the, the banter's back, all that kind of stuff is all awesome. And all the major, a lot of the side story arcs are kind of dealt with pretty well. Your Genophage, Krogan's story arc, your Quarian guest story arc, the Cerberus story arc, all that kind of stuff are all wrapped up pretty well, all told, over the course of the game. Where Mass Effect 3, in my opinion, runs into some problems is with its structure and pacing. It doesn't feel quite as tightly structured and well-paced as Mass Effect 2 did. It kind of gets a little odd in some places. And yeah, that's kind of one of my, main issues with the kind of the game as a whole. The real elephant in the room about Mass Effect 3, and the elephant in the room of the entire Mass Effect franchise, is the ending. The conclusion of the Reaper story arc, which is the primary story arc that you've been working on from the very beginning of the first game all the way into the end of the last one. Bump at my mouse there. That is the issue. Now, for me, when I first played through Mass Effect 3 and I got through the ending for the first time when the game first released. I mean, I pre-ordered it, I played it on day one, I binged it until I finished it in a few days. When I got to the end, I actually didn't have all that much of trouble with it myself. My first playthrough, I picked the destroy ending because I screwed up and got the Geth blown up in the Quarian arc. So I didn't have them to worry about, and I decided that, I've been playing all these games with one goal in mind, and that is blow up the frickin' Reapers, and guess what? I'm gonna blow up the frickin' Reapers. That's what I did. And I had a high enough score that I got the whole, Shepard takes a breath ending and all that kind of stuff, and I felt, that was alright. And it wasn't great, but it was alright, in my opinion. And then all the criticisms started coming in about various aspects of the ending, the fact that all the three endings weren't all that different, and a whole bunch of stuff. And a lot of them I kind of felt were nitpicking, to continue to use that term. And in some cases, completely missing what was happening for some of the criticisms that I had heard. But yeah, most of it was legitimate. They had problems with the ending. And, They acknowledged it. They worked on the extended cut DLC, which resolved most of them, not all of them, in my opinion. But it took an ending that was okay and made it decent, bordering on good, in my opinion. But when you have a game, series that has been as excellent as it has been, having an ending that is just okay or borderline good, somewhat decent, is kind of a somewhat of a disappointment. It was a missed opportunity. It's kind of the biggest thing I could say is that the ending is a missed opportunity. It could have been great, but it wasn't. It was merely okay. I guess to give some examples of some things that I thought were kind of silly, the criticisms of the original ending. Well, I guess first I need to mention how certain parts of my brain work. When I'm reading or experiencing a story, and there happens to be a gap somewhere in the story where something doesn't get explained entirely, what I tend to do is if there is a way to make a logical leap or an inference to fill the gap, I just do and move on. And I don't really care. And a lot of times I just don't even notice it even happened. My brain just does it. Just fills in the hole and then just moves on if the hole can be filled. In some aspects of the complaints of the original ending were holes that my brain could fill. One that I can think of right now is the complaint about how your squad, when you're running towards the beam at the end of the game, they are down on the surface with you. But in the original ending, then when the Crucible went to fire, they were suddenly on the Normandy. How did they get from the surface to the Normandy was the big question. This is one of the things they fixed in the extended cut by adding the whole extraction scene, which is fine. But, in the original, it wasn't there. And for me, that wasn't really an issue because my brain made the leap that in the time that it took for you to hit the beam and get transported to the Citadel and fire the Crucible, which is a not insignificant amount of time, they got picked up. Someone must have picked them up and brought them to the Normandy at some point. Okay, done. No problem. No issue there. So, that's kind of how things work for me. Another complaint that I remember feeling was kind of silly because I didn't think people were paying attention. Or it may also be that some of the writing was not quite as clear as it should have been. There's that. Is that when the Crucible fires and the pulse hits the relays and then it branches out through the entire galaxy, that the relays basically are damaged. They literally come apart in certain cases. And one of the, complaints was, I thought that, was that they thought that during the Arrival DLC was established that when a relay is destroyed, that it releases its energy in a massive explosion that destroys entire star systems, like a supernova going off. And my reaction to that was, yes, a relay explodes with the force of a supernova if you smash it with a rock. That's not what you were doing when the Crucible fired. The entire point of the Crucible being integrated with the Citadel was to release this burst of energy in a specifically tuned way. This was mentioned early on in the game. One of the concerns that Liara was bringing up, that, if this thing backfired, it could be devastating, but, obviously the catalyst is some way to tune the energy release of the Crucible in such a way that it doesn't do that. That the energy release when the relays discharge is tuned in such a way that it does the thing that you told them to do. So no, they don't destroy star systems, they kill Reapers, or reprogram Reapers, or somehow synthetically combine organic and synthetic life. Whatever. However that works. So, those were kind of my reactions to the ending. Now, that brings me to what would I do with the ending? What changes would I potentially make if BioWare were to do something like, I don't know, remaster and re-release all 3 games as some kind of legendary edition or something? If they were to happen to do that, what could they potentially do to the ending to maybe make it better? And one of the things that I kind of thought about was that one of the things that they really could or probably should do, will they? Probably not, is to make the options that are available to you at the ending more granular and more responsive to what you've done over the course of all 3 games and what you've done in the last game, in particular tied to the war asset score, right? So, for example, what I mean, that say you just got enough war asset score to cross the minimum threshold needed to actually complete the game. I don't even know how you do that and still get to the end of the game, because I think that, at least with the way the game is currently configured, that if you just do the bare minimum, you're going to get way past that minimum threshold. But, let's say in the new version that, you cross that minimum threshold, you just get across it enough to finish. Then when you get to the end, and you have the catalyst docked to the Crucible, and you're talking to the AI construct, that you only get one option. You only have destroy, and that's it. Because you barely have anybody that could help build the thing. You barely had any resources. You just managed to finish the thing, right? And get it where it needed to be. So it's very crude, unsophisticated. A lot of the functions aren't finished. And so the only thing it can do is destroy the Reapers. And then through the conversation, you get to the point where, say, for example, it will also cause massive damage to all technology it touches. It'll not only destroy the Geth, destroy Edie, it'll also damage all the ships, it'll damage any technology on all the planets that get hit with it. Basically, it'll completely destroy almost all technology, and galactic civilization will have to start over from scratch. But the Reapers should be gone. You'll win, but it'll be a Pyrrhic victory. And that the more war assets you get, it opens up the other 2 options as you progress through, get more and more and more war assets and cross certain thresholds. Another thing that could be done is that if you get certain things, certain sets of decisions throughout all 3 games, that the effects of each of those options become slightly different. So one of the things I was thinking about is that, say you get the Geth data for Tally in Mass Effect 1, which is easy to miss. Legion survives Mass Effect 2, and you peacefully resolve the Quarian-Geth conflict in 3. That the destroy option, for example, would not affect the Geth or Edie. Right? It'll only be focused on the Reapers and the Reapers alone, and it won't cause hardly any damage to any other technology besides the Reapers. Right? Stuff like that they could kind of work into there so that it's more responsive to what you have done as the player, and that it feels more like that the options that you are presented with in the game are more a result of what you have done, rather than just a door A, door B, door C decision that you need to make just because you happen to get there. So there's that. The other thing that I was thinking about, and this is kind of getting kind of long, but I guess I'll go into this as well, but this is kind of a little bit more than I think would be possible, even if they were inclined to do it, would be to make certain alterations to the story in general. Because there are certain things that are mentioned by the Leviathans and the Leviathan DLC and the Prothean VI in the main story that seems to contradict some things that the Catalyst says when you converse with it. What the Leviathans and the Prothean VI seem to indicate is that the cycles of the galaxy are some means to an end. The Reapers are looking for something, right? By using this cycle. They're trying to figure something out or find something. But when you talk to the Catalyst itself, it presents the cycles as the solution that it came up with. This is the solution that it came up with, and that, it preserves all these organic civilizations in Reaper form so that they don't, so that there's at least some record. Because if they get destroyed, inevitably, according to it, then they'll be lost forever. So at least in this way, that they get preserved in some way, shape, or form. I would, say we would want to change that to it being that, yes, the cycles are basically a giant iterative experiment that the Reapers are running. Kind of almost like what Cerberus was doing in Sanctuary. This is kind of brute force, make small initial changes and then see what the results are. And then if it doesn't kind of get what you want, you try again and again and again and again and again until eventually you find what you're looking for. Or you get the result you're looking for. So I would kind of change things to be more like that as far as what the Reapers are up to. And in fact, I would even go so far as to change what the Crucible is. Because right now, what the Catalyst says is that the Crucible is something that someone in one of the cycles came up with, and it just so happened to survive, despite the Reaper's best efforts. Instead, what I would do is make the Crucible actually introduced into the cycle by the Reapers themselves. And that they actually ensure the plans of the Crucible make it from one cycle to the next in some form. And the primary function of the Crucible is to be a mechanism by which the Reapers are able to determine that the solution that they're looking for has been found. So that any galactic civilization that is able to successfully complete it and deliver it, and then, have someone successfully arrive at the Citadel to activate it, are the conditions that will let them know that, they have a cycle that has reached a potential solution to the whole synthetic organic problem. And of course, you'd have to come up with all the details and all that kind of stuff. But, that's kind of just my thoughts off the top of my head. So I guess that brings me to what the future of Mass Effect is going to be. Well, we know that the Legendary Edition is, in fact, coming. Aside from some mechanics changes, it's already been confirmed for Mass Effect 1, which it desperately needs, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not expecting much more from Legendary Edition than a fresh coat of paint on the same games that we have. Though, I did get asked if I was planning on doing a second series of Mass Effect in the Legendary Edition when it comes out. And I initially wasn't thinking so, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm deciding that, yeah, I probably will. It probably won't be right away when it releases. I'll have to wait for a time slot to open, but I'll probably go ahead and do that. So, I'm still thinking about it, but that's kind of where I'm leaning at the moment. And then we know that there is a new Mass Effect game in development. We haven't really seen much of anything about it. Just a teaser trailer, so not really sure yet what that is going to be about, but BioWare hasn't exactly had the best track record of late, so I am kind of in wait-and-see mode for any new Mass Effect games. I'm also in wait-and-see mode of the new Dragon Age game, because I want to see if BioWare is going to be able to emerge successfully from the absolute dumpster fire that was Anthem and correct ship, correct course, right the ship, and put out something that isn't a dumpster fire. So, we'll see. We'll see. But I think that's it. That's all I really wanted to talk about as far as Mass Effect goes right now. So, I guess, look forward to a potential Legendary Edition series. And if the new Mass Effect game does look good, I'll probably be playing that on the channel as well. So, yeah, I guess look forward to that. All right, well, I'll see you guys next time.